All right, they asked us just to kind of run through what we have going on with our service information sites and the different types of information that we're providing to the aftermarket. One thing I've been asked to point out is that General Motors used to, for years, had service and parts operations, also known as SPO. We've changed the name to be more focused on customers, so now it's customer care and after sales. And one of the brands underneath that is AC Delco. Our AC Delco is our aftermarket brand to the aftermarket. A lot of times we get questions on our website that you're providing something different to the dealer than you're providing to the aftermarket. Well, I'll tell you what, General Motors wasn't that smart to build two different sites. All we did is we knew we were marketing, and Mark's laughing there because he got to look at both sides, is marketing. So we put an AC Delco brand in front of the aftermarket because that's the branded parts that we sell to the aftermarket, and we put a website called Global Connect in front of the dealers. Once you pass that login, you're hitting the exact same applications on all of them. We have one application for everybody. Just a pretty picture here. It doesn't show up that great up there. That is our place in Grand Blanc, Michigan from the sky in the middle of the summer. Doesn't look like that most of the times of the year, but at that point of the picture, it does look pretty nice. Just kind of want to talk about repair and diagnostic information. We refer to it internally. GM is very bad, like most OEMs, with acronyms. GMSI. So our service and repair information, what used to be in the printed manuals when it was taken electronically, we called it GM ESI, or I think even at one time it was ESI 2000 or TIS 2000 for the service information. We had all kinds of acronyms. So just to simplify it now, it's GMSI for GM service information. Vehicle calibrations and diagnostic software is all packaged in together in a product called TIS. Originally it was called TIS 2000, then it went to TIS. Now it's TIS to web because we took it off the DVD and put it on the web. And then key codes and immobilizer pins. GM doesn't have a whole lot of immobilizer pins, but when you get key codes, you get both of them, pins and the key codes to actually cut the physical key. Just kind of go through our key codes and immobilizer pins as I have up there. You purchase all the security information. Whatever code we have for that vehicle, whether it's the glove box, the ignition, the door, if they're all different, we have all of those on one screen. When you buy it, per VIN, you get every code for that vehicle. If it has a VATS key, the code number, it's there. If you get a PIN number for the immobilizer, it's there. So per VIN, $24.95, you get every piece of security information for that vehicle. There can be up to 8 different pieces of information for a single vehicle. Mainly when you got to the older vehicles, when they had different door keys, different ignition keys, a valet key, a glove box key, different keys for different locks. Based on NASTF and SIRs, in early 2000, we changed our key codes to go back to 1985. So the system in the process of NASTF does work. Without that SIR request, we probably would have never went back past 85. Claude's shaking his head because he's been asking us since day one, I need those VATS numbers, those older ones. Our biggest fear is that our database back then, because the key codes database wasn't built as the primary tool for key codes, all of our dealers were expected to go to the original invoice and get the key code off of there. They didn't really maintain and keep that database up very well. So there's blocks of VINs that are missing and stuff like that. But whatever information a dealer can get on those back to 1985, a locksmith's going to be able to, or a security professional's going to be able to get the exact same information back to 1985. Move on to GM service information. This is kind of what's in our service information. Our bulletins go back to 1982 up to the current day. It also includes PIs. What's a PI? Preliminary information. That may or may not be a bulletin before it becomes a bulletin. What that means is engineering's starting to see a trend. There's a lot of technical assistance calls on this problem, and they've written up a document on how to handle that. At a certain threshold, they may determine that, hey, we've seen enough of these, we need to publish it into a bulletin, or they may not see enough of them to publish into a bulletin. If they don't, that's what becomes a PI, or a preliminary information. All of that information's within our system under the bulletin section. Engine and transmission information from 96, 97, and 98. That's when OBD2 became mandated to have the information. So our service information, you'll see sometimes published that we have information from 1998 to present. Truly, we have engine and transmission information for the 2 years previous to that because that covers emissions. That's when we were starting to get electronic and we were starting to put the information in there. And then we also added in 2003, any glove box owner's manuals or any glove box supplement books are also published online on GM service information. Another key point here is online, this is updated daily. If they make a change, you see the change instantaneously on the screen. Move on to GM software, vehicle calibrations, and this is free on the public internet, calid.gm.com. Other than about a month ago, I got a flurry of phone calls. Somebody with inside the GM IT network decided that that URL didn't need to be accessed on the outside of the firewall, and nobody could get to it. But through NASTF and inquiries, we were able to know that there was a problem and get the right people involved. It was basically a batch security process that they normally run through the corporate IT and just block that port. Didn't know that they needed to turn it on until somebody told us. They turned it back on. But what you can do there is put on a VIN number, and it'll give you all the calibration sequence and history of it. Here's a sample of a screen just of an engine controller here of all the different calibrations in the history of the calibration. Doesn't always necessarily have to be a service bulletin to have a calibration update, so you kind of have to use both tools to be able to determine whether you need a calibration update or not. For calibrations only, we finally here, I believe it was last year, went to a 2-day subscription for $55. Being a big corporate company, we tried to write the business case of how could we give a aftermarket shop a 2-day subscription, since they're typically, in their minds, you're going to be the less trained, we're going to spend more time supporting them. How are we going to be able to cover our cost on $55? Boy, were we wrong. We got guys that have switched from buying a year to $55 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a month. So the revenue model, it's supporting the support costs that go into it. And that's another point that I want to point out here, is with every one of these subscriptions, you get access to the exact same tech line support desk that the dealers get to. They answer the phone AC Delco because we want to keep that AC Delco brand in front of you. But the guy answering that phone is also answering dealer calls. He just sees on his phone that this number's coming in from this line, I need to answer it this way. So don't be surprised if he accidentally answers it with the dealer as opposed to the AC Delco, because it's the exact same phone line there. So we have the 2-day subscription for $55. We got a 3-month, a quarterly at $275, and we got the whole year at $995. And as you can see, for any of you that have been watching us, we went from the annual down to the quarterly to the 2-day. So we kind of took baby steps to get there. So far, it's been a great thing. TIS Diagnostics. That's just our Tech 2 software to update your Tech 2 scan tool. We only sell that annually, and the reason that we only sell that annually is there's only 4 scheduled updates per year. We don't know exactly when those scheduled updates are going to come. They're going to be somewhere between the quarter. It's kind of hard to sell it to somebody not knowing when they're going to get their updates and not get their updates, so we need to sell it in a whole year's length. On average, there's about 8 of them a year. We know there's going to be 4, but there can be up to, I think a few years ago we had 12 of them. So whenever they feel that there's enough change that we need to create an update, they create an update, and it ends up out there in your subscription. And that subscription annually is $750. Calibration and diagnostic software packaged together. This shows you how forward-thinking we were. We created a TIS to Web All Access, which was the calibration and the diagnostic software together. And as you'll see in a few more slides here, All Access really isn't All Access because we weren't forward-thinking enough, and we've added more products since then. But that includes both the service program, the vehicle calibrations, and the Tech 2 diagnostic software. And that, once again, because it includes the Tech 2 updates, is annually only at $13.95. And then came Global Diagnostics 2. Most of you said, I never even knew there was Global Diagnostics 1. There was no real change between Global 1 and Global Diagnostics 2 other than we changed suppliers because we were through the middle of the bankruptcy period and there were business reasons that caused us to change suppliers. So there wasn't any real reason that, Global Diagnostics 1 was a bad idea, so we needed to create 2. It really was a new supplier, had to have a new name and a new product. So this supports all of our, what we call our Global A vehicles. Starting in 2010, we went to the Camaro, the Chevy Equinox, the Buick LaCrosse, the Cadillac SRX, the GMC Terrain, and then on top of those, in 2011, we added the Chevrolet Cruze, the Volt, and the Buick Regal. This isn't going to be like the Tech 1, Tech 2 dividing of, one day you worked on using a Tech 1 to work on the vehicles, the next day you worked on a Tech 2. This is going to be sporadic as these electrical architectures change of these vehicles. More and more vehicles will be added to Global Diagnostics 2. But the Tech 2 is still required, and the Tech 2 software is still required, and you're going to have a mix of 2 for several years until all the vehicles get to a global platform. And we have this software available in 3 days, 1 month, and an annual subscription also. New software coming soon. Coming soon is as soon as October 21st. You'll notice on our site that we're adding another subscription for Tech2Win. What is Tech2Win? Basically, Tech2Win is a Tech2 emulator to be placed on the PC using only our GM MDI to interface with the PC to actually emulate the Tech2 on a PC. And subscriptions are going to look like this: a 3-day for $55, a 1 month for $225, and an annual for $550. But basically that emulates almost everything that a Tech2 can do on the screen, and I say almost because there's a list out there of small exceptions that'll be on the screen that you'll be able to pull up a document that says what it doesn't do. And in the US it's a lot less. This tool was actually created by a gentleman that works for Opel in Europe out of his own necessity in his basement. So he was an employee that created this project. This wasn't a GM sanctioned project to begin with. He created this on his own. And now it's became a commercial product. Where do you get this information? acdelcotds.com or GM Tech Info. They both direct you to the same place. Once again, we're trying to keep the AC Delco brand in front of the aftermarket and keep the marketing front there. And also, I just wanted to point out that AC Delco runs 2 promotions, has for about 3 years. GMSI, if you buy $3,000 worth of parts a month through one of our e-commerce solutions, you get SI the following month. So we've got several customers out there that they don't pay anything for GMSI access. It just continues on. And then this year we started a TIS2Web earn back where you can earn back up to $1,000 of the $13.95 subscription by making purchases through AC Delco, WIP, or Wise Connect, both of our e-commerce tools.